Hey, Steve Tripp here from StripCam Training Systems with another video. Let's talk hamstrings. Something to be considered when talking about the hamstring is that it's what's known as a biarticular muscle, which in English means the muscle crosses two joints. So the hamstring crosses both the hip and the knee. So we're very familiar with hamstring exercises like hamstring curls, okay? In order to do a hamstring curl effectively, the hip joint has to be fixed while we flex and extend about the knee. Because if the hip is moving and the knee is moving, then we're not able to create tension on the hamstring, all right? So our hip position and maintaining said hip position is essential when trying to create and maintain tension on the hamstring. Prone hamstring curl, excellent hamstring exercise, but a lot of you guys are fucking it up because you're allowing your hip to go into excessive anterior pelvic tilt. And if you guys look at my anatomy, the hamstring connects to the pelvis. And if I allow the pelvis to go into anterior pelvic tilt, my back is then short and my hamstring is lengthened, which is going to affect my ability to isolate that muscle. So how can we fix that? How can we influence our position on this machine to offer maybe a posterior pelvic tilt to provide length in the low back, perhaps a little bit of tone in the abdomen, and therefore be able to drive all of the stimulus to the target tissue, which is the hamstring? Why not use a yoga block? Check this out, guys. First, if I lay on this machine, because of the way our neurological system works, when we go to pull with our hamstrings, we're gonna wanna extend at the spine and curl, all right? Now, correct me if I'm wrong, those of you who have done a lot of sets and reps like that, you feel it in your hamstring, but you probably kind of feel it more in the distal portion above the knee, something like this. I'm not saying that's useless, but it's much more effective if you can get the stimulus and tone higher up here where the hamstring originates, right below the glute. And what allows us to do that is actually our pelvic position. So if I use this yoga block and I place it on the pad, it's gonna elevate my torso a bit right beneath my sternum. And I can then wrap around that block. And if you guys watch my pelvis, when I do that, as I wrap around the block, I'll go from anterior pelvic tilt, short back, expanded abdomen, lengthened hamstring, to a posterior pelvic tilt, where now I have some abs, my pelvis dumps back, offering length in my low back, so that won't be as much of a contributor, if at all, and I can get a lot more stimulus into the target tissue, which is my hamstrings. Disclaimer, you're not gonna be able to lift nearly the amount of load in this proper position than you are in this extended position because my back is no longer contributing. My abdominals are maintaining the posterior pelvic tilt, which exposes the hamstrings to command this exercise entirely. This is gonna be just hamstrings. So I'll place this down. We have some handles underneath, which is great, so I can get that nice reach, and I allow myself to fall over this yoga block. My pelvis drops back into anterior tilt. My hamstrings are a bit shorter, maintain nice abdominal position, kind of crunching on this block. I reach my elbows forward so my scapula protract, and I lock in my torso in that position as I perform the hamstring curl. And guys, I'm telling you, you know when you're in the right position because you can feel tremendous hamstring sensation right here. Another thing with the hamstring curl, guys, is we have so much more potential to create force in the lengthened range. We're so much stronger here to here than we are here to here. So what does that tell you? Spend some time in the shortened range, all right? Rather than playing to my strengths and generating a ton of force here and floating through the end range, why not instead kind of govern how much force I apply in the beginning and pull through with a more honest contraction here in the shortened range, which is really gonna influence that tissue. Oh man. So with that exercise variation, I'm getting some abs, I'm getting a ton of hamstring. Because let's think about this objectively, guys. We all want to move big weight. A lot of us are guilty of associating a successful exercise with doing more weight for more reps, all right? But no one gives a shit how much you can hamstring curl. What we're trying to do in this exercise and in any machine exercise is influence tissue specifically. That's why machines are advantageous, because they offer constraints, support, stability, so we can drive as much tension as possible into a specific tissue. Where, let's say, a barbell hamstring exercise like a squat, a deadlift, an RDL, that may be a bit more of a global stimulus where we're trying to coordinate a lot of tissues, including the hamstring, to move load from A to B. So guys, strip down the weight, and rather than trying to, get X amount of reps to X amount of weight, really lean into these positions and try to influence tissue rather than perceiving a heavier set for more reps as a successful set. Maybe instead you could approach this exercise and other ones like it by saying, if I can get that 45-pound plate to really fatigue my hamstrings in almost less reps and create as much sensation as possible in the target tissue, you're going to experience much better outcomes, much more hamstring development, and also perhaps some positional influence, getting out of this hyperextended position that we all tend to favor into a more neutral position, having the hamstrings tone up a bit, pull the pelvis out of excessive anterior pelvic tilt, which is the culprit for a lot of low back pain. Get those hamstrings working the way they're supposed to get that pelvis a bit more neutral, get the abs a little more toned so we're not so jacked up in this extended position. A hamstring curl can do a lot more than just influence hamstring development if done within the constraints of these cues. All right, guys, so great variation for the prone hamstring curl. Get yourself a yoga block and see for yourself. Enjoy.